Maybe we could
What was the
restate the
request? What was the
question.
question?
Is there one or two things that you think broadly the American public doesn't understand about the Korean War? Bill, from your perspective?
I didn't get the question.
Oh, is there one or two things about the Korean War that you think the broad American public doesn't understand, or doesn't remember, doesn't know? From your experience, based on your experience, what would you like us to know about the Korean War?
Well, the first thing that we all need to know, and I think General Lee of the Confederate Army said this 160 some odd years ago, that war is hell. And the best way to prevent war is to have a strong, no, that's not right, a very strong Defense Department. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, very strong, so that nobody in his halfway right mind is gonna fool around with us. Now, when we got into the Korean War, the United States Armed Forces were not ready at all for a fight. When I joined the Second Armored Division in 1948, it was the only armored division in the Army. It had 5 understrength battalions. There was a 1 tank battalion, 1 infantry battalion, 1 field artillery battalion, a reconnaissance battalion, and there was 1 company of engineers and a medical company. That was the only armored division in the United States Army. And, hey, you know, being cheap and all that kind of, now, I think right now we're finally getting back to some kind of strength of what, when you go against the Chinese, we're going back, I'm talking it's almost 1950, it's almost 70 years ago. When the Chinese came in, casualties were of no importance to them. Maybe they considered they were better off dead than alive, but they came at you. It just climbed over their own dead. I remember one fight that we were in, which was the one that actually stopped the Chinese, the farthest penetration south in 1951. In my tank company, we fired machine guns so fast that if you let up on the trigger, it'd still keep firing. It was so hot. The only way you could stop it, if you wanted to, was to twist the ammo belt. We used up all of our 50 caliber ammunition, every bit of it. When we redistributed ammo, we had, I think we had 250 rounds of machine gun ammo per tank. We had no high explosive tank ammo. In fact, in that fight, some of our guys were firing armor piercing at the enemy infantry. And they just attempted to swarm all over your tanks. In fact, some of us were firing on the tank ahead of us to keep the Chinese off of them. And that's what we were up against back during the Korean War. And my unit wasn't the only one that ran into that kind of stuff. Everybody else did. All the Americans, all the British, all the French, everybody. It was the same thing. Let's hope we don't have to, but if we keep our armed forces strong enough, maybe nobody will decide to screw around with us.
You know, back to what he's talking about, when I went in 1950, they were kicking out the old soldiers. I mean, I was 17 and anybody over 22 was an old soldier as far as I was concerned. The guys that had fought during the Second World War, sergeants, captains, lieutenants, they would take captains and reduce them down to master sergeant or get out. He's right. We did not have an army ready to fight. And I hope and pray to God we never get caught with our pants down like that. You got to have a strong army. I don't care what anybody says. Or you're going to be defeated. And like he said, the Chinese came at you and you almost wanted to throw up the way you were killing them like they were mashed potatoes. But it's him or you. And I was a machine gunner too, so I know exactly what he's talking about. I'd fire my .30 caliber in the barrel. The only bad thing about the 30s is the barrels got hot and they would warp. Well, no bullets going through them, but I had a good assisting gunner. 3 clicks and it was out, 4 clicks it's in, back off 1 and we're back to firing again. And I mean, he could do it just like clockwork. But like he said, I used to shake my head and cry and say, why? Why are these people dying like this? And I had no idea why.
We fired machine guns so constantly that it wore the barrels smooth,
Oh, yeah.
and you could actually see the tracer bullets tumbling. In fact, when I sent back to our headquarters request for new supplies, I asked for 26 machine gun barrels and 26 sleeping bags. You can imagine what a downfield sleeping bag does when a tracer bullet hits it. Oh, it makes a beautiful fire. But, we were firing, smoothbore stuff, and in fact, one of the other company commanders took not only his sleeping bag, but 25 others from his company and sent them up to me. My sleeping bag wasn't burned. I had 26 other people who were. But anyway, on that fight, we stopped the Chinese, and they didn't get any farther south after that. And of course, I left the company a few days later and found myself back in the Valley Forge Army Medical Center about 10 days, 2 weeks later.
You were speaking of, there was no budget for Korea. We fought Korea off what was left over from the Second World War. We even got practice hand grenades. You throw them and you go 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. And it would finally go off and you'd go, oh my God. So you got to where you would loft them. Because they would pick them up and throw them back to you. The North Koreans would. So you throw them up in the air and you go 1001, 1002, 1003, wham! Oh, I got you now. But they just didn't have a budget for us.
And spare parts were hard to get.
Oh, especially machine gun barrels.
You had to beg, borrow, and steal, and it was more often the latter than the two former. Who else has got some questions or comments? Come on, let's go.
Yes, ma'am.
Or is Korean War the truly forgotten one?
No, there's a question over here.
So you had mentioned, being off the coattails of World War II, and I had read in a few places that when servicemen and women came back from World War II, they were hailed as heroes. Whereas, sometimes with Korean War vets, it was that forgotten war effect. And with that, I was kind of wondering, how was your reception when you came back home, particularly since both of you were Michigan men on the U of M campus?
Bill, can you hear that? Could you hear the question?
I didn't get the question.
Okay. You want to repeat? sorry. So, or,
Do you want to say it?
Loud.
Yeah,
Say it
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
You can say it a little louder.
Okay, I was wondering, how was your reception coming home back from Korea? And especially as Michigan men on the U of M campus?
Well, my reception was none. I came back on the USS General Nelson Walker, troop transport, landed in San Francisco. Went through a physical of how you feel, listened to my heart and my lungs and says, okay, you're okay. And then I went over and they said, how do you want to go home, by train or by bus or by airplane? I said, well, I haven't been home in almost 4 years, I'd rather fly home. So I flew home, got home, and a few of the people tried to celebrate, see, the funniest thing, I was the first African American to return back to Ypsilanti as a former prisoner of war. Nothing. Nothing, believe me, my dear. Gotta remember the times now. You gotta remember the times. That's the big thing. The 50s still were very segregated times. So I came back to nothing. As far as I was concerned, it was not a fanfare. So I maybe that's what I felt was missing. You know, they call Vietnam veterans baby killers and all this. People back here don't understand when you get an order to blow up a building, you don't have time to run in there and says, everybody out? When that commander says, blow it up, you gotta react right now. So, and I know this as a fact. So you didn't have time to know if there were children in there, women in there. And Americans hate to shoot women and kids, I'll be honest, but those North Korean women were something else.
You know, another interesting, now as far as reception back home, for me, you know, I came home and right into a hospital where I was for several months and all that. So I wasn't out in public too much, but when I was, there wasn't anything one way or the other. But going back to Korea, remember, it was colder than cold. And I remember during the day, the Korean people moving south. It would be a column 4 or 5 across, 6 across, all day long. People moving south. Men, women, children, many of them barefoot, and carrying on their backs the few possessions they get. They were getting away from those communists. But it was just a day after day after day of people like that. And I've often wondered how many survived. And I remember at one time I was, for a few days, attached to a British unit. And they had picked up a little youngster. He was 3, maybe 4 years old. And they had him dressed up, but they were keeping this youngster, feeding him, keep him warm and all that kind of stuff. And eventually, of course, they had to get rid of him and turn him into whomever was handling or for the kids there. But all the armies, American, British, French, everybody was picking up the little orphans.
Yep.
And there were scans of them.
Yeah, we had one, we called him Donald. And we had, one of the guys took one of the uniforms and he was, I guess a tailor or seamster, I don't know, but he cut it down, had him fitted, jacket and everything. And same thing, we had to give him up. Don't know what happened to him. But he was with us and he never went into combat with us. He was always behind in the company mess hall or somewhere. the guys, when we got relieved, he would come back and he would be there. We were teaching him English, and that is the fascinating thing. While I was in Korea, in prison camp, I learned to speak Chinese, and one time I could speak Chinese very well. I taught a guard how to speak English. He taught me how to speak Chinese. And I don't remember a lot of it. I remember the ni hao ma, wo de hao, how are you, my friend? I never could pick up Korean. I don't know why. I tried, but it's a very difficult language for me.
Tell them where he went.
You know, today,
Pardon?
Where he went to school.
Where who went to school? Hmm?
today, the Republic of Korea is a very prosperous country. The population of Seoul is something in the neighborhood of 21 million. Can you imagine living in a city with 21 million people in it? And it is within artillery range of the North Koreans. But the last time I saw it, we were getting kicked out of there. And I led a column of tanks through there. I had gotten a call from the company commander, said, we don't know what's going on, you have no idea, you're on your own, get off the best you can. And I had been through there before, so I knew where there was a railroad bridge. And I was able to get this tank platoon across the bridge. But going through the city, we actually were driving through an arch of fire. Buildings on both sides of the street, 2, 3, 4 floors, were on fire. And it was really something driving through the fire on both sides, all over your head, and you were driving down in between and underneath it all. And today, there's a lot to the Korean people. It's a very prosperous country, and you know, many of us in this room have refrigerators, washing machines, and dryers made in Korea. And at that time, in the 1950s, it was strictly an agricultural country with most, at least away from the big city, most of the buildings had thatched roofs on them, were wattle walls there. And one of the things we had to do there, get in town, we were being pushed back, get the order, burn the town.
Yep, blow it up.
You get the head man, get your people, you have 15 minutes to get out. Lots of jibber jabber noise, 15 minutes to get out. And they did. In 15 minutes, you'd put tracer bullets into the thatch roofs. And the reason for that is so that the guerrillas couldn't hide weapons in the thatch roofs later on to be used against us. So as General Lee and as I say, war is hell.
You know, I have to give the engineers, Corps of Engineers, a lot of credit. I remember when we went north, there was a bridge that, over a river somewhere up north, that had been knocked out. And it just blew out a section. They flew over and took a picture of that section, took it back, and they built that section on the ground, came up with choppers and set it in place. And that's how we got a lot of our trucks. It's the only way we got our tanks and trucks out. And when I saw that, I said, wow. But there were more, like he said, there were more people across the bridge than there were us. They would jam across that bridge and you just sat there. And you'd have to see them. I have a picture at home showing you before the bridge was repaired of the people crossing over like ants. Just like ants. The wife and I had the opportunity to go back to Korea twice. And it tickled me. I told the wife on the plane when we were landing, I said, you're gonna see all these houses with thatched roofs and mud sides. We're going, how can it? She said, where are the houses with the thatched roofs? I had to ask the guide. She said, oh, no, we don't have, you have to go way out in the country to find them. And we got to the museum there in Seoul. And when you walk in, there's a house with thatched roofs and mud sides. And I said, there it is. But no, I have to agree, war's hell. And the younger you are, the better the Army likes you, because you'll take orders and do, not, you don't question. You get older, you're gonna say, wait a minute now, do I have a choice in this matter?
Well, you know, the service in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, that's a young man's game.
Yep.
And today, a young lady's name. The top dog uniformed officer in the Armed Forces of the United States is maybe 60 years of age.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Now, you get into the business world, and top dogs are a lot older than that, but it's one of those things, and today, it says, and one of the best things that was ever done, the armed forces is to have total integration.
Yep.
Makes no difference if a person is black, white, green, purple, or candy stripe. It's, everybody is the same thing, and also we have lots of ladies that are in the armed forces. In fact, I have a daughter-in-law, retired colonel. I have a granddaughter who's a first lieutenant, military intelligence. In fact, I talked to her, yesterday. She is, when she answered the phone, I said, where are you? Home, on the way to church, or in the field? She said, in the field. We've been here 5 days. It hasn't stopped raining since the day we got here. That's life in the armed forces. Or not so much for the Navy, that's life in the Army.
Any questions?
Back here,
Yes.
when did it get real for you? When was the moment that struck you what you were getting into? Was it when you shipped out? Was it when you landed? Is it something you saw, something you heard?
When did it get real?
When did what?
When did it get real to you? Real?
What get real?
I'm sure he's speaking of the war.
When did it feel like war?
When did it strike you what you were getting in? What was the first thing that told you what you were actually getting into?
First thing it told me was that my best friend was killed.
Well, you knew you were going into battle, so you knew that somebody was gonna get hurt and killed. I mean, that's a part of war. There's no way you can get around to it. And frankly, I get pretty perturbed at these people I hear on the news who get all uptight because some soldier, sailor, marine, or airman has been killed in God knows where. It's a part of war. We're going to lose people. Well, it's just too bad, but that's the way it is.
But I think my first really astonishing part was a fellow that from St. Louis, Missouri, that I met, and we became quite good friends. That's why I say you don't learn people's names after that. And we had got orders to move up, and he stood up and got shot and killed. And I looked at him, and I said, come on, Cliff, let's go. And he didn't move, and I reached over and touched him. And I started to cry. But old Sarge come up and slapped me upside the head with his .45. Says, get your damn ass out of here. You're a soldier. You were meant to kill people and get killed. Let's go. And I sucked it up. And my wife would tell you, it was a long, we were married 55 years. I bet 50 years I never cried. Because when I'd start to, I could hear his voice. Men don't cry. And I told this to my son, and my wife said, don't ever do that again. He has a right to cry. Because I told him, you don't cry, you're a man. Suck it up. Because I thought that's the right way to do it. But it wasn't.
You know, if there's anything good that comes out of war, and that's medical stuff,
Yeah.
surgery. And it's just, I know when I was at the Valley Forge Army Medical Center, in my section, ward I was in, we didn't have private rooms or even semi-private rooms. The majors and colonels did. But I think of the 25 or so was in there, there weren't two injuries that were the same. Everybody was different. And I remember a fellow in the bed next to me had taken a bullet along the face of one of them, broke his jaw, and took the lobe of his ear off, which he didn't discover until a month after he got back to the hospital. But his jaw was all wired up, and he had eaten the liquids through a straw. They had to take out a tooth, they had room for a straw, and we, of course, would comment on all the good chow we had and all that kind of stuff, and he would eventually get disgusted, and we were talking about this delicious strawberry pie. All of a sudden, go to hell. And he'd walk out. But we just had all sorts of characters, and nobody in there could feel sorry for himself very long, because he would really get taken apart. But and some of the surgery that came out of those injuries is just, even for 65 or so years ago, it was just amazing what these guys could do. And the way they got people back to major hospitals there. Today, a person gets injured in Afghanistan, and in many cases, that person will be at the big hospital in Germany. That's just a transition state. He'll be there within 24 hours. And back to Walter Reed Medical Center, you know, within the next 36 hours. It's just amazing. Now, way back then, I think it was pretty good, because it took us 10 days, I guess, to get back to California. But and then some of the stuff they did, I know that there was one of the guys, he arrived after I left Valley Forge, but he had lost the thumb on his right hand. And a couple of young doctors, captains in medical corps, orthopedic fellows, said, you know, we can take care of that. We can take this guy's forefinger and put it in there where a thumb should be. And they had some talking to do, but they convinced the hospital commander to go ahead and do it. And now in the civilian stuff, with the malpractice insurance and all that kind of stuff, you don't know about that. But what they did, and it worked. And it worked. In fact, although my wife was not in the orthopedic, so at that time, she knew about it and watched it, and she told me about it. And in fact, I think there was some pictures in Life magazine, which was a great magazine back in those days, about this thing. But they did some fantastic